it's a good thing, you know, Biden's withdrawing from Afghanistan. I always look at it kind of air quotes withdrawing. I don't know how many private contractors are staying there. I don't know how many, what do they call them? Special advisors. U.S. troops are staying there as advisors. We've kind of left Iraq now 5 or 6 times. Just when you think we've left, you find out there's thousands of troops there. Obviously, we'll probably have permanent bases in Afghanistan, but on the surface, at least major uh, troop levels are going down. However, I could credit Biden. You get a little, you get trigger some people on the left. You can't credit anybody that you disagree with anything. But to me, the obvious question is, all right, well, if we're winding down this war, why are we increasing the Pentagon budget? If we're winding down a war that we spent $300 million a year on, that should have been ended 15, 16, 17 years ago, why is the Pentagon budget going up? Why aren't we talking about reappropriating, probably cutting at least 50% of the Pentagon budget? I think you and I know the answer, but I don't hear any of this discussed in, corporate outlets as far as, all right, if we're winding down a war, why can't a lot of the resources we spent on that war go to radical things like healthcare, school, climate, those kind of things?
I mean, I think unfortunately, Jordan, Afghanistan has become sort of the convenient symbol for a lot of people. Even some people, I think, in the anti-war movement, it's become almost this trophy in an inverse way, where it's like, well, if we stop this one, then it's like, then it just shows you how, sloppy and irresponsible and pointless this whole endeavor has been, and that the U.S. empire is losing, or it's on its way out, or it lost in Afghanistan, or the Taliban beat us. There's almost sort of this anti-U.S. pride, and I'm as anti-U.S. as it gets. So I'm not saying I don't understand that, but to say like the Taliban beat us, and sort of like, yeah, they showed us how hubristic we are, and we can't do this all the time. I think it's a sort of a distorted point of view to have, and sort of also doesn't take into account that we don't really know fully why the United States actually occupied Afghanistan for so long. There's so many different reasons why it could have. I'm talking about beyond filling the filling the pockets of like defense contractors and contractors. There's a lot of other motives at play here. So to say that we lost, or that we walk away with our tail between our legs, I don't necessarily see it that way. And I think that in terms of why we're just spending more money now, like why is there a Pentagon budget increase while we're pulling out of a new war? I mean, yeah, it's just, I think Afghanistan was almost like, it is almost just like, in a way, it could have been even been used by the U.S. government or the military as a symbol of the war on terror. Because that could have been one purpose it served also. If we occupy Afghanistan, then at least it makes it look like we're trying to fight a war on terror. We're trying to hunt down Al-Qaeda, even though all we do is we now just fight with the Taliban and various, Afghani citizens in these skirmishes all over the country. We'll just say, we'll just conflate Al-Qaeda with the Taliban and we'll be good. Then people will just see it, as a reason or impetus for the war on terror, or, how we're fighting them over there so they don't get us over here. And we'll even have Democrats like Barack Obama go out there and say that, Iraq was the dumb war and Afghanistan was the smart war, because that's where the actual terrorists are, even though that's not really true. At least it could serve sort of an optical purpose for us, to be a PR front for the war on terror. So, 20 years is long enough for that. And it's like, at this point, most people have been simmering in this broth of just accepting this idea that America needs to constantly be at war anyways, Afghanistan or not. People were born after 9/11. It's normal for them now to believe that the war on terror that's normal. Like that's where we live in. Of course, America is always out there drone bombing and, doing Delta Force raids in random countries all the time, because that's the reality we live in. And, I think Afghanistan, it's almost like a symbol that's no longer useful for the people who are trying to push the war on terror, and they can just run the engine without it being there anymore. So, and then also, I mean, we're obviously have imperial endeavors and other geostrategic endeavors with China and things like that that are sort of coming into the horizon now.
at the end of the day, if you keep invading countries, then you leave. Your invasion creates splinter terror groups. Then when you leave, those splinter terror groups become bigger. So then we have a threat to continue creating jets and weapons because of the threat that we're creating by continually invading the country. So it's just this self-fulfilling endless hamster wheel where we're creating these groups. Frankly, I'm not condoning terrorism, but generally if you invade countries for centuries, um, you're going to get some pissed off people, some born radical, some made radical. But it seems to me if you perpetually keep on invading these countries under false pretenses, straight up lies, you're always going to have an enemy, which to then further feed the military industrial complex.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are some policymakers who are looking at it that way, where it's like, well, the more damage and splintering, as you say, that happens there based on our actions and our occupation there, then ultimately just gives us more of an excuse to stay there. I mean, I'm sure people over there understand that and employ that framework to see it. Um, at the same time, though, I do wonder sometimes if this stuff is just so, you know, it's like we don't even really know sometimes the actual overarching strategies that they have at play here. I mean, it wasn't even until like 2 years ago that I started wondering, oh, wait a second. What if Afghanistan had more to do with China than I had ever really thought about before? Because like I didn't really, I'm not even thinking about China most of the time until all of a sudden we're constantly hysterical and afraid of them now. But now it's like, yeah, that probably did have something to do with China. I mean, the Xinjiang province is right near the part of the border that we occupied. Most people don't even realize Afghanistan shares a part of its border with China, even though it's a very small part. I mean, imagine China sharing, occupying a country that shares even just a 10-mile long piece of the border with Mexico. I mean, that would freak us the hell out. So it's just, we don't think about these things as Americans. And I think, you know, I don't know. I mean, we're always going to find, I think the sad part is, Jordan, we don't have to do much to find an excuse to do what we want at this point. And I don't, you know, yeah, it hasn't been since maybe Iraq that we've full scale invaded a country, and it's going to take a lot of convincing to do that again. But I mean, it's really not going to take that much. I mean, I guess maybe that makes me sound like a cynic, but I don't really think that they're going to have to keep creating splinter groups in these countries as a means to perpetuate reasons to keep us over there. I think the damage is like already done. Like
Right.
we've already stamped our boot down and we're like, yeah, no, we can just send a drone in wherever we want at any time. Like, what, are you going to stop us? I mean,
Right.
just that is like, I mean, how do you go back from that, at this